I exist, I would say, in a place that exists between belief and doubt, but I'm pointed in the direction of belief. I know this sounds strange, but there's something demeaning to religion about attempting to talk about it rationally.
Right.
Because it's not a rational thing. It's absurd in its nature. And there's something, for me personally, about giving yourself over to something that's bizarre, strange, deeply strange idea. I mean, the best of creation requires some suffering and some struggle and is a reflection of what we are as human beings, which, in my view, are things that suffer.
Are there particular lines of questioning in interviews that you find particularly irritating?
Well, there's ones that are just commonplace, and they're the same ones over and over and over again. If you put out a record, you basically guarantee that half the interview will be just repeating something that you repeated in the interview before.
Oh, right.
Because the same questions get asked.
Uh-huh.
These days, however, happily for me, but for not many musicians, my sort of what I'm prepared to talk about has sort of expanded for some reason, mostly because of the Red Hand files.
Yeah.
And this is so people talk to me about other things, and that's a kind of a relief.
So you're now part musician, part grief therapist.
Well, there is that. Yeah, there is that. What do you want? You've got
it's an opportune time for me, isn't it? We were just talking off air about the fact that my father just died last week. So it is interesting. I mean, where it lands for me is that I'm realizing with all of the retrospectives about his life and looking at his childhood that he was just a kid who grew big and had kids and muddled through.
Were you close?
Very close, very, very close. Muddled through, did his art, had an impact, and you just sort of think like it could have gone another way. You know, he didn't. When you're a kid, you think that these people are masters of the universe.
Yeah,
and then you grow up and realize that you're one
of
them.
Well, yeah, and you have them yourself and realize you don't know what the fuck you're doing.
Exactly.
You're winging it. I found that very much so.
Now you're a grandparent.
Now I'm a grandparent, and I'm rather good at that. you do a 20-minute, 30-minute slot.
Yeah.
You're the greatest human being that ever existed.
Right.
And then you give them back.
Yes, no pressure.
No, it's beautiful.
It's great.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Is there a different role?
This guy, without going into too much, but this little guy, Roman, his name is the spitting image of his father. I mean, it's just like I just remember this so well, and he looks the same, and he's the same kind of personality. And so it's like remembering those years that you forget. You really do forget what your children were like when they were tiny. And he's like, it's like I get to see him all over again. It's actually unbelievably moving, the whole thing.
Does it put you back in the frame of mind of when you were a father to a child that young, and does it make you evaluate yourself?
I was just, I had so many of my own problems to deal with at the same time. It's ridiculous. So I was unable to be, I think, a conscious father. I was just a guy, maybe like you're talking about with your father, that was just doing his thing and winging it and doing a bit of parenting here and doing this and that. And also when he was very young, not really in showroom condition, you could say. I was dealing with a whole lot of different things. And this, with the grandson, suddenly that's all, it's no longer a thing. And I'm just this person who's able to focus and be sort of mindful, if you like, of this child. It's amazing.
Yeah. Did you lack mindfulness during that? Was that the same period as you were on drugs, or was that?
Yeah, early on, not for his whole childhood. Thank you.
So you kind of miss that. I mean, you don't miss it. I mean, when one is in that state, one misses. Life passes one by.
I think what I mean is that you're struggling. You're struggling with things in your life that are chaotic. They're chaotic. They're sending everything spiraling all the time. That's drug taking, alcoholism, all of this sort of stuff. And you are simply, I guess, not fit to be a parent in some way. You do your best, but and if I have regrets about that kind of thing, it's really about my inability to be, I think, a true parent.
What's a true parent?
True parent is someone that's able to not be entirely absorbed with their own situation and be able to spend time listening to and understanding a child.
Was it annoying parenting?
I loved it. Like I said, like I'm trying to say with Luke, who's older now, he's 34 or something like that. I was, having my difficulties when I was raising with the twins. I was not, I was clean, but what was the question?
Was it annoying?
Oh,
I found parenting infants annoying.
I liked it.
Right.
I really liked it. I love children. I love little babies. They get better year by year as you've
absolutely.
Every year they're just like, wow. And the first year is amazing when suddenly they're becoming conscious of the world, and it's a beautiful thing. And I find that it just gets better and better, even into adulthood.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It doesn't do a sort of nosedive when they stop being cute.
No, although I'm.
I mean, there are difficult periods ahead.
Yes,
the teenage years are difficult.
Who likes a teenager?
No.
Nobody likes a teenager.
No.
I'm sure I'll like my teenagers because they're mine.
A bit.
Yeah, I'm sure there were times when I don't. I love 5 to 12, the sweet spot, like the golden age.
Yeah.
Curious, little personalities, talkative.
They still love you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's incredible that I am the most important person, well, one of the 2 most important people in the universe.
Yeah.
Well, I'm all powerful to somebody.
It's an amazing thing that no matter what you're doing, in a way, a child is sort of, ever forgiving, and the default setting, at least for me, it was that they just see you in a good light.
Yes.
No matter what's bubbling under the surface of your life.
Right.
Anyway, I love children. I love to play with children. I like to write about them. They're both metaphorically and in reality a huge thing within what I do creatively and within my life.
Did you know that
was a terrible sentence? Though.
Did you know?
This is not live.
Did you know that?
I have an English literature teacher for a father, and who's no longer with us. So
okay, that explains.
He always sort of sits there
judging you for your language. Why choose a monosyllabic word when you can choose a 5-syllable word?
Yeah.
Do you get accused of that?
Have you read the Red Hand Files? have you tried to read the Red?
No, I don't think of you as being an overly pretentious writer. I think you're quite clear.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that.
Where before you had kids, did you want to be a rock star? Did you want to be an artist?
I wanted to be a painter. That was the whole idea. Was that I loved painting. I loved art. I loved learning about art. I knew a lot about art. I was probably the only person that was doing art in my secondary school that actually was interested in the history of art and these sorts of things. So I was gearing. That was what I was concerned with, gearing up for. Went to art school, had an amazing first year, and the second year I failed. And I was shocked, horrified that this had happened. I couldn't understand why. And then I just had this band at the same time. And so that's what I kind of continued to do, really. I mean, I'm happy that I failed. There was something, pulling the strings perhaps. But anyway, I failed and became a, famous rock star instead.
When you say there was something pulling the strings in diverting you from painting into music, what's the something?
Well, I mean, look, it feels a happy accident that I got out of painting, which is a unbelievably difficult job.
Right, but you don't have
a lonely job. We can get into
theology because
theology.
Yeah. I mean, when you said something, it wasn't just an accident. You
okay,
you raised your eyes, you cast your eyes
theology
skyward.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure how our lives are, but I do raise my eyes skyward because I have a feeling of something existing beyond us. So. But that was also a flippant remark. So I don't think my life is sort of carefully managed by some sort of overlord.
No, sure, but there can be a muse who gives you guidance, right?
I would say that I exist. I would say in a place that exists between belief and doubt. I would say my whole life exists in that way, but I would say that I am pointed in the direction of belief. That is, in my view, from my feeling about myself, the direction that feels better for me to go, rather than away from belief. And but sometimes I have serious doubts about this. I'm a rational sort of person, and I have doubts about this. And these doubts worry me hugely. And I thank God for podcasts like yours, where I think yesterday I listened to you talking to Sarah Ada.
Yes.
Which was two atheists talking to each other. And in a way, I think you might disagree. This might sound a little unfair, but in a way, kind of patting each other on the back for their sort of intellectual honesty, and that they haven't fallen prey to sort of, I think you kept using the word stupid ideas. And I look at these things, and I think fundamentally, I am not that. I am different. My entire makeup, the way I'm built, is not that. And I think I think the sort of religious disposition is you're just kind of born with it. Some people are, I think, and some people aren't. It's not that you can't cross over, but I think some people are fundamentally atheistic in their makeup, and some people are sort of devotional characters. And it reminds me of that is what I am, is a devotional, religious type, that feels, even though rationally there's a whole lot of stuff that takes a lot to get my head around, but deep down I'm religious, I would say, by nature, or spiritual sounds a bit wishy-washy to me.
Well, not necessarily.
I mean,
I think it's a distinction worth making, because if it's the case, and I will take your word for it, that I called beliefs stupid when talking to Sarah Hayter, what I would be referring to in that context would be specific historical or cosmological claims about the nature, the material nature of reality that religious people from a particular denomination claim to know. So what happened to the physical body of Jesus 2,000 years ago, whether or not Muhammad flew to heaven on a winged horse physically, those kinds of claims I'm comfortable calling stupid to believe in, because I don't think there's enough evidence to believe in them. But I do think it's worth carving off those claims from, I think it's an epistemological error to claim that you can know with confidence that those things are true.
Or not. And
well, we conditionally believe that all things aren't true. A lot of things aren't true.
Yeah, I think it's that what I find what when I look at your conversation and I think I'm not that, or I listen to Sam Harris and I think I'm not that, or any of the atheists, which I always love to watch it's lovely sport to watch them sort of
videos of Hitchens demolishing someone,
demolishing some Christian. I always felt that I also didn't like them. It was enjoyable, but I knew that I was not that.
Yeah, no, I get that.
And that is the sort of hubris behind the atheist, that type of atheist that sort of looks down upon people who have different beliefs than them, that believe them to be true. And there's a lot of unbelievably smart, intelligent people that are Christian by nature. There's no way you can call some of these people stupid.
No, and I wouldn't.
No,
I might call a belief stupid.
Yeah,
or a claim stupid.
I think. I mean, in my view, if I was to give you some advice in life as an older gentleman, is to lose the word stupid.
I'm surprised that I did say it, but
I think you said it several times. I kept sort of flinching because it's that sort of self-satisfied way of viewing the world that in all ways I am not. I feel I'm sort of mostly don't know about things, whether it's theological in nature, political in nature. I exist in this sort of muddy middle ground with a lot of these sorts of things, and I don't have that. I don't have that kind of certainty about things. It's just. I think that's just not in my nature.
I think that's why it's useful to make the distinction between religious and spiritual, because over the course of, you say you can't necessarily change from a disposition of being devotional to one of whatever the opposite of that is, secularism or atheism. But I actually have evolved to become much more open to spirituality and to the divine over the course of my life. I mean, I would have been much more obnoxious.
What is the divine?
Well,
to you,
just the deep inherent mystery of what the fuck we're all doing here, and how consciousness even is a thing, and why the cosmos exists in the first place.
It's just the winged horses that.
Yes, so I think I understand. I take your criticism, and I'll be mindful of it in the sense that I know that different ways of phrasing things land differently for different people. And so I'm probably needlessly alienating people who find their devotion wrapped up in a particular set of sacred texts. But I will still die on the hill of saying that there are good reasons for believing things and bad reasons for believing things. And it's not inconsistent to be open to a devotional sense of the majesty of the cosmos and the miracle of existence at the same time as saying that doesn't give us reason to believe that we can know things about what happened in the Middle East 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, no, that's all fair enough. For me, the word, I don't like to use the word spiritual. I much prefer to use, for myself, religious by nature, because to be religious by nature requires some kind of rigor, I would say, whereas to be spiritual by nature is like...
white linen and crystals and incense.
Yes, it's all lovely, and we're all spiritual, and of course we're all spiritual and all that sort of stuff. So it feels, when an atheist says he's spiritual, quite frankly gives me the creeps.
Yeah. No, I totally.
It's a kind of like it's like dipping your toe in or something like that. And for me, just to say, even though I have huge, and I don't call myself a Christian, because I just don't feel that, perhaps I don't feel the need to. But where I find my sort of belief system to be at its most acute and beautiful, I would say, is when I go to church, and step in. There's a beautiful, I'm going to misquote quote this probably, but Andrew Sullivan, the podcaster. Have you talked to him?
I spent last weekend with him in Provincetown. Yeah.
Okay. That must have been fun.
It was great. We were going to do a podcast, and he was so sweet that when he heard that my father had just died, he said,
"Oh, really?
Oh, forget about it. Let's just go and ride a bike up to the dunes and get stoned and watch South Park."
But he's a Catholic, and he sort of sums up going to church as a place, I think, where he feels he can go, shut the fuck up, and bow his head in worship to something that he doesn't understand. And there is an acute focusing of something that happens in church for me, which is religious by nature. It's not a spiritual thing. It is religious by nature. It has something to do with the stupid text and all the rest. That is delivering a series of extraordinarily difficult claims. That when you first go to church, sort of balking at things that are being said all the time. But church has a lovely way of wearing you down if you go a lot, and that there's something else that exists that sort of reverberates behind those words that is truly beautiful and has, in my view, something to do with a kind of truth. That's a kind of truth that sits outside of what is, I guess, rational or mechanistic. And it's a very beautiful thing. And I think a lot of people who go to church feel that way. They when you drag the claims out into the cold light, that Christianity is asking you to believe, it's often difficult to, they're difficult things to. I mean, I've very much given up arguing about the existence of God with atheists, primarily because atheists always win the arguments, because they have all the sort of artillery, and we who believe in these sorts of things really only have, an intuition or a sort of a softly spoken idea about something, and it's very difficult to. It's very difficult to be convincing about those sorts of things.
I mean, it depends what you mean by God, though, doesn't it? Because if you mean, it's very hard to beat an atheist in an argument about whether or not the God of a particular Bible exists in the way that the Bible articulates his existence, because the claims are stupid, pardon my French. But it's very easy, I think, to beat an atheist in an argument about whether or not the universe is sufficiently bizarre and complex to warrant further explanation than a reductionist materialist one.
Yeah, there is that, but at the same time, I think we're arguing rationally. There are the sort of, and there's something about I know this sounds strange, but there's something demeaning to religion about attempting to talk about it rationally, because it's not a rational thing. It's something that's to do with. It's absurd in its nature, and there's something, for me personally, about giving yourself over to something that's this crazy idea, bizarre, strange, deeply strange idea. I mean, the Christian story is deeply strange. It's difficult to believe in, but underneath the fabric of that story, it's extraordinarily mysterious and beautiful. And for some of us, there is some kind of truth that exists underneath that. That's not rational. To have a rational argument about these sort of things, I think, belittles the mystery of
right.
It just brings it down to sort of
it's almost like trying to explain art or something.
Yeah,
trying to explain
exactly
music.
like
to a robot. But I mean, I've been to mosques in Egypt and heard the Muslim call to prayer and been touched by something. I've been to synagogues and have heard the singing and been touched. Do you think it's specific to Christianity that there's something uniquely profound in Christianity?
No, not really. I mean, look, my argument sort of starts. This is where the argument collapses a lot of the time. I think in these regards, it's the difficult thing. But for me, it's just it's the religion that I know, and I guess the church I go to is High Anglican, and it's the church I know and I'm comfortable with, and I don't know.
Does meditation affect your thinking about what consciousness is and what's divine?
Meditation is hugely helpful. Do you do that? Do you meditate?
Not enough.
Yeah. I mean, I do. I meditate. I have for, 12 years or something like that.
TM?
TM, I do. I was taught TM maybe 10 or 11 years ago, and it had an unbelievable effect on me. I don't know if it still does, and and I'm a more kind of patchy around. I used to do it every day, twice a day, in fact. But it had a huge effect. It was the strangest thing, because I can't remember why I decided to do it. Maybe I'd read David Lynch's book or something like that, and I always thought I didn't want to get into meditation because it'd make me all kind of. And then I saw that David Lynch had always meditated, and he was anything but kind of woo woo, and so I went and did. You do 3 days of lessons of TM. And I didn't say much about it to Susie, my wife, and stuff like that. But a week after doing it, she's like, all right. She's like, what's going on? And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? She goes, whenever I try and talk to you about something, you sit there, you look at me in the eyes, you listen, you don't start madly rolling a cigarette and, run for the back porch. You're not angry about things anymore. It within a week, it had a massive, it sort of wiped away all of these sort of awful, nasty little human habits that I had, and made me a much more bearable person to be around.
Did it make you feel differently about what humans are and what consciousness is, or no?
No, I've never found it to be anything more than a sort of stress relief or something like that. I've tried different sorts of meditation, and I'm not sitting there having,
right,
mind explosions and stuff.
Did you do psychedelics when you were doing drugs?
I did when I was at school. Yeah.
Yeah. Did those provide profound or?
Well, they were profound, I suppose, but they didn't. I think that sort of thing's quite different these days.
Right.
The stuff that you get. The stuff that we were taking back then, God knows what that was.
What it even was.
I think the psychedelic experience has come a long way.
Yeah.
But I haven't done that.
Okay. What's the closest that you've been to God?
Well, I can tell you a story. I haven't actually ever told this story, which is rare for me. I'm pretty much exhausted everything. That at the time I didn't feel anything except deep confusion about this. But I was in rehab for the second time. After the first time, I'd come out of rehab, and I'd spent a year. It was the worst year of my life. I was clean, but I couldn't communicate with anyone. There was a sort of veil between me and the world that I was just terrified. My creative juices dried up. It was just an unlivable life, clean. I went. I started using again. Everything spiraled out of control. I went back to rehab, and I was 3 weeks into rehab, and a friend who became visiting time, which is the dreaded time in rehab, where your family members come along and friends, and they all tell you what an asshole you were when you were using drugs and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, this was visiting, and a friend of mine came, and he was telling me about a Tarantino movie that he'd seen, and I just felt this thing go down between me and this guy, and And I just thought, oh my God, my life is in such chaos from using drugs, but without drugs, I'm just entirely alone and couldn't relate, or there was just something between me and the world. It was a horrifying situation because both being clean and using were both an impossibility unto themselves. And he went, and I just broke down, and it was a moment of deep despair, which I really didn't know what to do with myself. And then I went into the meeting room, the green room, whatever you call it, the sitting room, and I was sitting there on my own, and I was in deep despair. And the first guy comes in, one of the patients comes in, and he just was sort of glowing. And I felt this feeling in my heart of sudden, deep love for this person. And it was just this random junkie that was walking in. And it was the strangest thing. And then another one came in, and the same thing happened. And I just felt this incredible love for everyone. It was a terrifying feeling in a way. And I went and told one of my counselors, look, I don't know what's going on here. And they said, whatever, and go away. And I went to sleep and I came down for breakfast, and it was still like that. The whole room was just, and there was this feeling towards basic broken humanity. It felt like that was, of a religious nature, although I didn't see it as a religious nature at the time. I was just confused by it. And I still, then it dissipated. It just went away after a couple of days. But it was a deeply profound feeling. And it's a feeling that I still have this sort of residual feeling about that. Not all the time, but when I make some connection between a random person in the smallest possible way, one human connection from one person to another, I feel this sort of blossoming inside myself. And perhaps, I don't know, that was a religious experience.
Amazing.
If I had have felt that now, I would certainly think that, it was, a hallelujah moment. At that time, I didn't see things in that way.
So that form of connectedness, if that's what sort of makes us fundamentally human at our best versus the aloneness that you were feeling behind the veil, what do you make of the rise of social media, which connects us all superficially and yet leaves us sitting in our rooms by ourselves alone?
Yeah, it's I guess it's terrifying. I don't do social media. I tried it some years ago.
It sounds like drugs. I don't do drugs. I used to try a bit of pot.
Well, I tried Twitter for a while, for maybe 6 months. I didn't actively use it, but I just scrolled. And I found myself getting physically ill. I would get up in the morning, look, and I just start getting headaches and all of this sort of stuff. And I sort of gave it up.
Was this pre or post Elon takeover of Twitter?
Pre.
Right,
pre.
okay.
Yeah.
It's even worse now, if that's any consolation.
Yeah, no, so I hear.
But I mean,
I have to go across the blue sky or something like that.
Don't even bother. I mean, the stats about, the loneliness epidemic, more and more people are living alone, more and more people are saying that they're lonely, more and more people are, and part of this has to be caused by the fact that it's so easy to have these ersatz versions of connectedness that make us feel like we're doing all the things that friends do, which is talk to each other, but we're doing it to an avatar on a screen instead of to a human being in the real world.
I don't know what my wife, for example, gets a lot out of social media. She loves it, and I don't see any adverse reaction. Although she's tough, I don't think ultimately I'm tough enough for social media. I don't like being in adversarial situations. It doesn't, even though I constantly am, it seems, for one reason or another. I don't like it. I don't like getting letters into the red hand files that tell me what an arsehole I am for whatever reason it might be. It's not a feeling that I mean, some people sort of thrive on that stuff. I'm not one of those people, but yeah, I mean, it feels like an epidemic and a deep problem in our society.
If you don't like getting adversarial letters to the Red Hand Files, then what do you like? What's the ideal letter?
The ideal letter?
Yeah, the one that makes you light up when it comes in the inbox.
Well, within the Red Hand Files, it's just a kind of river of grief and love and loss and need and kind of yearning that runs through like a beautiful river through the Red Hand Files. I love that stuff. On the sort of banks, on the banks of it, there's a sort of nasty, snarking kind of, you said this, you think that, why don't you say this, that goes on, that's like a kind of, what's that word, effluvium, or is that the word?
Your father, the literary professor, would be proud of effluvium.
He just spoke it into
yeah.
That's sort of, I don't know.
The flotsam and jetsam. Maybe.
Yeah, it's a peripheral.
The shitty foam on the side of the bank.
That stuff. Yeah,
it's a strange river you've chosen to consume.
Well, it started really as a trickle. It was really a very, very small impulse, which I actually, and thank God I never did this, with all due respect, wanted to do a podcast. This was 10, back in the day. I thought, I'll do a podcast.
Who would want to be consigned to such a fate?
And my long-suffering assistant even did a podcast course of how to do a podcast. And then when she finished the course, I decided that I didn't want to do a podcast, that I'd just answer letters and write answers to them. And so that was just... That started with people going, what's your favorite band? Who are you influenced by? Just general rock and roll questions that slowly morphed into other things. And I was able to guide it in a little bit and start to write about things that I wanted to talk about. And I was having my son had died and there was just these letters that started coming in from other people who had experienced the same thing. And it became a beautiful and strange to and froing. And this now is just this massive. This is just this onslaught of these sorts of things, which I read. It all takes a huge amount of time, but it's very beautiful. The whole thing's very moving. It's very good for me.
It's not a toll.
It's a toll to some degree, but once I sort of sit down and start reading it, I just, yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
It's a very strange place you've ended up as a elder statesman, philosopher king, as well as musician, like an advisor.
Yeah, I mean, weirdly, the questions I like answering the most is when I get asked to, advice about things that clearly I know nothing about. Like, a 15-year-old girl writing about what I should do because I'm feeling lonely. It's just not on. And it's not a good look and all the rest of it. But she asked, and so there's some sort of. There's a challenge in that I find exciting, and it's how can I say it? It's kind of exciting to sort of step into a realm where you don't really know things, and you try and work them out, and you try and work the best, most compassionate way to answer a particular question. This, by the way, does not come naturally to me. I'm not naturally an empathetic person. I don't it requires something of me to sort of drag myself up to the better end of my nature, you could say. It takes some days sometimes to just sort of get all the, like, oh, for fuck's sake, get over it. Or, these sorts of things that go through my mind when I sometimes read someone's letter and work out, a compassionate way of addressing that person's concern.
It's so funny, Nick, that you were talking about religion as opposed to spirituality and your love of the church and, in a way, the formality of the church and the structure of formal religion. Because what you're describing there in your relationship to the Red Hand Files, in terms of struggling your way and dragging yourself towards being a better person and then trying to figure out a way to create the most compassionate answer, it sounds like a pastoral role. That's what a priest does.
Yeah, well, obviously I don't look at things in that way, and it's very uncomfortable for you to say that to me, because that's not. Once again, I think what I do with the Red Hand Files is position myself in a place where I don't really know. I think we all understand that I'm not actually the oracle, or most people understand that, and that I'm just sort of trying to work myself way through these
Anyone
same
who
things.
said they were an oracle would not be a true oracle.
No. All right, okay, fair enough. But what the Red Hand Files is most resistant to is the kind of stridency and dogma of opinion, and that it's trying to sit in the middle there and just work things out with people. Sometimes they get a little dogmatic, I would say. Some of the answers, I read them back, a few weeks later, I read it back and think, that they have a sort of self-correcting feel. I can read them back and realize, look, I'm getting on my high horse here a bit or whatever. And they're very good for me. They're very good for me.
And in terms of connection and that kinship that you can have both with people who are writing into you and with the random person who's in your rehab room, how does that relate to your kinship with an audience when you're on stage?
It's very similar. You can go, it's funny because you can go on stage, although I don't often do this, but you can go on stage in a kind of way where maybe you'd say, I don't like to use this word either, actually, I really hate this word, but in an unmindful way. That is to say, you get up there and you're concerned with other things on stage, like the sound or the words or whatever, and you forget the audience in a way. And there's other times that you can focus your attention deep into the audience, and this the audience understand that. This creates a kind of feeling, a sort of incoming and an outpouring, an incoming of love, you could say, that is very much religious in its nature for me. That feels like it's on some level a legitimate, transcendent experience. And I think some people find that too, and that's enormously rewarding to hear people see that. That's not a preacher role. That's more of a sort of a conduit for a feeling that exists in the world. That I have a huge, privileged position to be able to help people get there, and there is a duty, I would say, for musicians to attempt to find that place, and to go on stage and kind of phone in a performance, and to sort of sit there, it is, in my view, a kind of moral. It's a sin. It's a sin, I would say.
To use the language of religion. I mean, I think when I say a pastoral role or a priest, I'm not talking about a Southern Baptist fire and brimstone preacher who's literally preaching at people as to what they should do. But the best form of, I mean, the ultimate role of a pastor is to be uncertain and is to sit with people in the mystery of life and the hardship of loss and the, experience of failed expectations.
Have you met pastors like that?
No. I said in an ideal world, Nick, in an ideal world. Do you think people are becoming more or less open to humanity? Or is it always
to humanity?
Thus? Yeah, I guess to to that sort of connectedness that we're talking about, I guess, and more their receptiveness to being fully loving, feeling human beings. There's a lot of, I feel in myself the pull of distractedness, of busyness, of I think, all that.
It seems to be that way. There's a lot being made out of a kind of return to religion with the young and this sort of stuff. I'm not exactly sure about that. I have noticed at my church, there's just a whole bunch of young people. There didn't used to be. And, I don't know how you say it, but like cool young people.
Right. Not nerds.
Not nerds.
Right.
Not nerds. It's interesting. And my son, you'll probably kill me for saying this, but Earl, who's 25, he and is deeply embedded in the sort of counterculture and all the rest of it. Said he wanted to get baptized, and which I never did with my kids. And I said, "What's going on? Why? What's going on with you young people? I just see so many coming to the church I go to." And he goes, atheism is something your parents did.
Atheism.
And I thought, okay.
It's like it's the Facebook of beliefs. It's like something that was once new in the early 2000s.
But it was a kind of heartening thing to hear anyway, rather than being on the sort of up on the wrong end of the stick.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's don't know what that actually means. But you hear a great tide of rushing back towards Catholicism, and
that's a bit different, though, isn't it? Than
I'm not so sure that's.
Yeah, there might be other things going on there culturally than simply the quest to be more present, which is sort of what I mean by humanity, like the fact that we're so swept up in the busyness of everyday life that we've lost the ability to notice what's going on. It may be part of that, a spiritual yearning.
Yeah. Do you have
I don't have a
spiritual yearning?
Yes.
Have you always had something like that, would you say?
No. In my teens, I was a devotee of Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens, and I would have said that the materialist worldview was...
Sure, but did you... from as far back as I can remember, I had a feeling of a pull, like a pull towards some other thing, or something missing, or a kind of longing or yearning for something other outside of myself.
Yes,
it's nothing I could ever articulate or put into words. Every now and I went to the to church to the Anglican church in Wangaratta, where I grew up, and I was always felt when I heard the stories of Christ and stuff like that told, I was actually interested in them. None of the other choir boys cared less about that sort of thing, but I was interested, and I felt a kind of. It had a kind of an allure that was strange to me, and sort of always has. And it felt like in some weird way, a kind of defining emotion for me.
Well, you've got the God-shaped hole
Is that the
Your
God?
art.
It's just the
No,
God-shaped
it's the
hole.
God-shaped hole. I don't. I mean, I've never had that relationship to a church. No, but I've had. I think everyone has.
I mean, in general, a kind
Yes,
of feeling like, for example, in Wangaratta, where I grew up, it's a country town in Australia. I've been telling, what I'm telling you this, I've been telling this story on stage because I play a particular song, but I had this feeling, I always had this feeling as a young boy, right? As a teenager, 12, 13, of a kind of melancholy feeling toward the world that I couldn't find any answer to in Wangaratta. This town that just sort of baked in the sun and it was all sort of glare and kind of I just didn't find that. And a friend of my the sister of my best friend said, you've got to come to my house now. I found something. And we went to her little shack out the back of the place that she lived, and she put on this Leonard Cohen record, Songs of Love and Hate. And this dark, deep music started that just filled that just spoke directly to that. I remember just feeling this incredible feeling of music, of this particular music, speaking to that part of me in some kind of way that felt, when I think back again, it's a little bit like that other story in Rehab, of a kind of spiritual awakening of some sort through music. And I think music, I know I've gone a bit off topic here, but I think music can do that too. I think it's, which is why, song generating apps and stuff like that for me are a terrifying. It's a terrifying situation that no one seems to be really speaking much about. That there are these, whatever they are, what do you call them, apps or AI platforms or whatever they are, where you literally put in a prompt and out comes a song. You can put in, a dark Gothic song about my dead grandmother, and out comes a song, and they're actually not bad, right? But this for me is I feel personally with music, I find this with music more than with the other arts for some reason, is a direct and cynical attack on what it is to be a human being. That the idea that we can take the struggle, we can take the sort of the epiphany away and go straight to the thing, that the artistic struggle is just some kind of inconvenience along the way, and that notions of striving and these sorts of things are just completely demolished, is for me I feel a direct attack on our very soul, and it worries me because I don't think that there are very many legitimate transcendent experiences sort of left to us in a way. I mean, we have nature, although we're sort of abusing that. Religion is whatever been swept away by your mates mostly.
Well, more people are coming back to it. Your church is full of young, cool kids these days. Is writing music? You said a struggle, like the sort of idea that it's still a struggle
a
for you?
Struggle, yeah. It's it's a monumentally difficult thing to do, to write a song, as far as I'm concerned. Some people don't have that problem. Some people can pick up a guitar at a party and start strumming out some chords and sing some words, and they have a song. It's not like that for me at all. It's very much hard work, getting up in the morning and trying to piece together some lyrics and stuff like that.
And do you feel like it's coming from you, or do you feel like you're tuning into something?
Well, it's a kind of a mystery what's happening. I probably tend to think more that it's coming from elsewhere, but I don't know. I don't know where. I don't make those sorts of claims. I don't think God is writing my songs for me. I mean, he could do, if he was,
No,
he could
but
probably do a little bit better.
that's a crude way of putting it, Nick. But I think everyone who's been creative, everyone who has written something of any duration, whether it's in words or in music, has known the experience of forcing yourself to sit your ass down in the chair
Yeah.
and turn off your phone and do the hard work. And
Yeah,
at
I mean,
some point, something happens, and
that's right.
there's something else in the room that's not.
There's a sort of it's a terrible time for me. I sit down and at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I do that till 5 o'clock when I'm songwriting. When I decide that I'm going to write a new record, and try and write a song, and very, very slowly something comes, but there's a sort of meeting of lines. There might be a line over here that I've written, or a line over there, and they sort of come together and something forms, and there's what I call a kind of shimmering or vibrational thing that starts to happen between the lines. It's almost visual. And then suddenly, hang on, that's an idea. And you stick another line next to it, and it's like, okay, you nearly got a verse there. There's something beautiful happening between these lines that is beyond meaning. It's not got anything to do with what you're trying to. I've not sat down and tried to write a song about Brexit or something like that. This is something going on. And the beautiful thing, or the frustrating thing, is that this little epiphany sits adjacent to boredom and frustration and despair. You just sit there like nothing's coming, and suddenly this little thing starts to happen. And you never know whether it will or whether it won't. Now, where that comes from, for me, the jury's out about that. But it's certainly, if I certainly trust that the meaning will come, that I'll create this thing and look at it, and in time it will mean something of to me personally, of some significance. It's a beautiful thing, because a song is just not this thing. It's this living organism that's releasing meaning all the time. Every time you get up on stage and sing it, if it's a good song,
and possibly different meanings to each of the individuals who are hearing it.
Yeah, well, that too
as well,
yeah.
Right? It'll land differently for different people depending on where they are. Yeah, it's magical, isn't it? I mean, I suspect that your antipathy to artificial systems generating this may be because there's no way to replicate that experience that you're talking about. But quite a lot of music that we consume, I mean, I know some American music producers who are quite glib and superficial about their relationship to the art form. They know exactly where the beats have to go. They know exactly what kind of music audio program to filter it through, that it's going to, then it's going to rise this way. And when that stanza's over, then it's already quite mechanical producing a pop song.
That's right.
So is there a loss there if we just outsource that to a computer?
That's not a very good argument, though. I think against, you're sort of taking the worst the worst of it, as if, well, the worst of it, that's what they do with the worst of it. But I think the best of it, the best of creation, requires some suffering and some struggle, and is a reflection of what we are as human beings, which in my view are things that suffer. And I think that this is at the base, at the sort of groundwork underneath all good music, and maybe all good art in a way.
What if an artificial system could suffer?
I don't know.
In the future?
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it strikes me that what you really...
I don't know about that. I'm not a... my larger concern, I guess, is that so much is being taken away from us as human beings. I think we're losing things and not being left with much. And I think this is one other sort of massive bite out of the apple, which is AI taking away. It's just AI within music. I'm not talking about AI in general, in medicine and all of this sort of stuff. I don't know about that, and I'm sure it will reap great rewards. I'm talking about within music. I think should be. It may not be, and that's even more of a problem, a massive demoralizing force on what it is to be a human being. The thing that scares me most is that it's not, that we just allow it to happen, and who cares if, I don't know, I think there's a Drake song out that was made by AI and an actual Drake song, and the AI one's doing better or something like that. I might have got that wrong, but that people actually are in a way have become so demoralized that they don't really care. I mean, that's a sort of bleak view of things, but maybe people really do care. Maybe people really feel that going and seeing a band actually playing on stage is something that can't be replicated.
I think enough do.
I hope that's...
I think enough do. For a start, there aren't very many of you in the overall landscape of musicians, people who are so sui generis and so dedicated to their craft and so motivated by, communicating in the way that you do with your audiences. So it may be the case that people are willing to tolerate pop songs from AI, and those aren't your people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, having said all that, I like pop songs. I like sort of plastic pop songs that make you feel happy and everything like that. So maybe there's room for both.
Yeah.
I don't want to sort of backtrack.
No. I think that's fine.
You might be right that there is room. There's a story with Stock Aitken and Waterman. This may be not true, I don't know, but that they were supposed to meet Kylie Minogue in London and do a song with her. This is when she was nobody. And she turned up to the studio and they'd forgotten that she was coming. And there's something like, oh, fuck, there's this young girl. And within half an hour, they'd written a song for her to go and sing, which is, I should be so lucky. That they just sort of sat down and gone, do this, do that, do that. I should be, I think, and this kind of, this is an unbelievably beautiful song in its way. If you like pop music, it's a brilliant pop song. And you can say that there is no struggle that happened behind that. It's just three unbelievably clever guys who could just do this. And maybe there's room for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're selling yourself short by framing it only as struggle that you're trying to cling to. I think you're trying to cling to some deeper vision of humanity and creativity than just things that arise from struggle.
Well,
I suspect that your resistance to artificially produced music is deeper than simply worrying that it doesn't come out of a place of struggle. I think you are worried about AI alienating us from what it means to be human.
Yeah. And,
in all of its variants, in struggle, happiness, richness, depth, curiosity.
Sure, I'm a kind of gloomy bastard. I personally, I think very much affected by the Red Hand Files and by reading what comes through the Red Hand Files, which obviously is not all of life, but that it feels to me that to define ourselves as sort of creatures of loss seems pretty much true to me, that we are all on some level losing something. And so I think that of course, you can sit down with great joy in your heart and write something too. But I think that fundamental sense of loss animates everything. Personally,
you are a melancholy bastard. How do you feel about dying?
I'm not too worried about it. It's not something that I spend much time contemplating. I don't know what happens when we die. I don't have any particular hopes one way or another. I feel that the lights don't just go out, but I couldn't say one more way. I don't have the authority to say.
In your professional pastor role?
Yeah, but I do feel, I do feel a sort of sense of a continuance with people who've died that exists in the living world, and maybe there's something in that, and there's concepts of consciousness, and so I don't know what happens when I die, so I'm not particularly concerned one way or the other.
And do you think about your legacy?
No, I don't. I don't think I don't think the legacy lasts particularly long. I was talking to a young guy, and I talked about Sex Pistols, Johnny Rotten. They were just like, "Who's that?" And you think these, when I was young, this was like everybody on earth knew the Sex Pistols, and now they're largely forgotten. That's quite terrifying in a way. So I don't have high hopes, shall we say, for my legacy.
Maybe making friends with that is the true job of living a human life, that we're all going to end up as dust, and that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's okay. This feels like we're winding up here.
We are. Thank you, Nick. You want to end on a less morbid note? You can if you want.
No, you leave. Sadly, when you die, you leave behind a lot of sorrow. I'm trying to find a happy way to end this.
You don't have to.
That happens. You leave behind a lot of sorrow, but I think out of that sorrow comes great, the potential for great beauty and growth as well. So there we have it.
It's lovely to talk to you, both your melancholy self and your Pollyanna self. So thank you, Nick.
All right, my man. Thank you very much.